What's your favorite thing about Theros? Theros is very unique in the fact for a D&D setting, the gods are very, very hands-on. And the
Yeah,
relationship with
yeah,
mortals is very unique.
yeah. In the Forgotten Realms, the gods have retreated. They've gone away from the world, and to kind of say that now mortals have agency. That there's no more meddling of the gods in the world. The mortals are on their own, and the gods are still there. Like paladins can still wield divine magic and all that. In Theros, the metaphysics of Theros is that gods are dependent on the belief of mortals. There's the pantheon of the younger gods. There's sort of this tier of I guess it would be like evolutions of gods, and that in Theros, and there were the Titans, and then the Titans were taken out by the first generation of gods, and then there were second and third generations of gods that kind of came after that. And the more and more the gods were later generations, the more and more that they were affected by the beliefs of mortals. Like mortals believed these gods into beings. So that's kind of the secret that isn't really explicit on Theros. Most immortals feel that the gods are created the world and the gods are all powerful. And what really is true is that the gods are dependent on the mortals' beliefs. If the mortals stop believing in gods, then the gods will disappear. And so the gods know this, and they're kind of wound into this symbiotic relationship. And some of the gods, they kind of are mad at that. They don't like it very much, and they kind of resent the fact that these puny mortals have so much power, and they have to appease them. So in a weird way, the gods actually have to appease the mortals just as much as the mortals believe that they have to appease the gods. So there's this fun dynamic. There's this fun interplay between how gods on Theros affect mortals and how mortals on Theros affect gods. And there's a lot of great adventure material there for heroes to explore, and DMs.
So Theros is a world inspired by Greek mythology, and so the gods are a big part of this world. And a character's piety and devotion to a god can end up playing a pretty big role in that character's life and career, and to some extent even their capabilities as a character. There's benefits that you get from piety that give you magical abilities you can use as you fight monsters and do other cool adventure-y stuff.
Yeah, I saw that. And it's really cool stuff, and it scales, correct? Because what I was looking at, your piety to your deity, depending on what the deity is, you get different powers, essentially. You get different kind of effects
Yeah.
for your character. And the higher up in ranks that you go, am I correct? The more powerful those effects become?
Yeah, you have a piety score, and this is a system. The bare bones of this system are in the Dungeon Master's Guide, um, but we expanded them, fleshed them out, and made them specific for each of Theros's 15 gods. So when your piety score gets as high as 50, you can do some pretty awesome stuff. They are mostly the ability to cast spells, specific spells that relate to the area of the deity's power and control. There's a couple of other things like advantage on charisma checks you make while you're within a city if you worship Ephara, the god of the polis.
And so it's another sort of branch of like a little power tree that you can follow. And what it does is it rewards players for playing in world and making their character like become that hero and to do acts that are along those lines. And it also teaches players how to learn about their god, like what does my god really like. And so if I'm going to be like if I'm going to be following Farrakha and I'm a druid, and I'm going to be discovering poisons and secrets, and sort of going to take side quests to try to find these things out and to please my god, or to discover like I'm going to mix basilisk blood with some other herb and see if I can create a cool potion that pleases Farrakha and all that. Then you get piety points, and then you kind of can grow that way. So it's really fun, and I really dig it. I think it's a great idea.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the gods of Theros, since there are so many, and for D&D players, they may not be completely familiar with these gods. These are new gods and very active gods, clearly. Um, what is unique about kind of the culture of these gods and how they interact? And do you have any
So,
favorites?
so there's 15 gods. They being built for Magic the Gathering. Theros established its pantheon of gods related to Magic's 5 colors. So there's one god for each of the 5 colors of Magic, and then 10 gods for each of the pairs of colors. That is mostly invisible to the D&D player who picks up this book, though. Those 5 major gods are the ones who occupy the role of, like, Zeus or Poseidon, Heliod, the sun god, and Thassa, the sea god, Perforos, the god of the forge, Nylea, the god of the hunt, and who did I forget? The blue one, no, the black one, Eros, the god of the dead, the underworld. So there's clear parallels there with Zeus and Poseidon and Hades, and they sort of form the core of the family of gods, sort of. There are 2 gods who are older than they are, mythologically speaking, Crufix and Clothis, who are sort of mysterious entities of fate and destiny and horizons and passage and time. And then the other, what is that? The other 8 are more sort of down to earth and directly concerned with aspects of human civilization and life in community and that sort of thing. War and slaughter and cities and agriculture. They have a complex net of relationships among them. They're not like, here's the good gods and here's the evil gods. It's, Thassa and Heliod often don't get along because Thassa thinks Heliod is an arrogant jerk, and you know what, he kind of is, but he's lawful good. So yeah, it is rich and nuanced in a way that I really appreciate.
Yeah, you don't necessarily get that story from the D&D multi. I mean, certainly we do. We have stories about Grumsh and Corellon and all kinds of things. But to see the pettiness between the gods, which was very core to kind of Greek and Roman mythology, and how overly human, right, the gods are. I've just skimming through Theros lately through the book. I have gotten a deep sense of that. So that's very exciting to see. How does this affect, say, magical items? Because magic items are like a big deal in these mythical stories. Beyond Greek and Roman, but Norse mythology and Arthurian. I have to expect some epic magic weapons, right, of some kind. Is there a completely new classification?
There is a set of artifacts in the book that are weapons of the gods. They are directly inspired by a group of cards that were in the first Theros card set, that are the weapons of the five big monocolored gods. So the spear of Heliod and the bident of Thassa and the hammer of Perforos and the whip of Erebos and the bow of Nylea. There, I meant to list 2, for example, and I came up with all 5. So they are artifacts in D&D terms. They're magic weapons, and the cool thing that we did with them is your piety to the god whose weapon it is, or your lack thereof, influences some of the random properties of the artifact. So the tables in the DMG that determine major and minor beneficial and detrimental effects. You roll on that depending on what your piety is. So you can, if you're a devoted champion of Heliod and you're using his spear, you're going to get more use out of it than somebody who gives Heliod lip service at best.
That makes a lot of sense. It doesn't, I mean, if
Yeah.
you're not if you're not that big of a fan of that god, you probably shouldn't be wielding that weapon. So,
Like exactly, that's like what you would expect to happen. And I love that the mechanics of the artifact rules and the piety system interact in a way that makes that super easy to do in just a couple of lines of text in the book. That's an elegance that I appreciate as a designer.
yeah, do you use the gods to kind of like pit, not necessarily pit the players against each other, but I mean, if everyone's very like, you know, if piety is in place, everyone's got a pretty strong view on things, right? Assuming that they're in Theros.
Yes. So again, similar to Ravnica, there's some discussion in the book about what to do if basically we're creating a factionalized system where we're encouraging you to put your loyalty and devotion in a certain direction. And D&D players being what they are, D&D campaigns going how they normally do, we don't expect the characters are all going to channel their piety toward the same god, which might or might not lead to conflicts within the party. The ideal, of course, is that everybody is cooperating and working together. Never split the party. That's the foundational rule of Dungeons and Dragons. And the book tries to offer some suggestions on how to make that work for a game. And the thing to remember about Greek mythology and about Theros and about really many real-world polytheistic religions is that these gods, devotion to these gods is not necessarily in direct competition to each other. Somebody who is fanatically devoted to Heliod is not necessarily out there saying, you cannot worship Eros, you must worship Heliod. That's not how polytheism works. While Heliod and Erebos certainly have some tensions between each other and that translates down to their followers, it's still not necessarily, oh, you must fight each other for your god. There are cases like Eros and Mogus, the god of victory and the god of slaughter, are brothers and they hate each other, and it would be pretty weird to see their followers cooperating with each other. But pretty weird is what D&D parties are made of, and
yes, yeah,
that's probably going to happen too.
Purchase your copy of Mythic Odysseys of Theros today on D&D Beyond. Link in the description.